All right, doubling down on Florida Panther content this week. Here is my review of National Geographic's Path of the Panther. So pictured as Carlton Ward Jr., he's the protagonist, I guess, of this film, unless you're considering the Florida Panther the protagonist. He's the one who generated almost all the content. You follow him throughout the course of his journey. So he's trying to take photo and video of the Florida Panther. Taylor and I recommended this documentary as a supplement to this week's discussion, so it felt apropos to review it this week. Well, I think it was mainly a vehicle to cover what appeared to be pretty extensive costs of the tracking and photography project. It did a pretty good job presenting some of the challenges that Florida Panther conservation faces in the present time, namely the issues associated with habitat fragmentation. It kind of almost touched on climate change in terms of rising water levels in the Everglades and that further reducing available habitat for the Florida Panther as well. But that certainly wasn't a focus of the documentary. It also brought up the Florida Panther being an umbrella species that could help protections for other wildlife in wild Florida. Obviously, the film is focused on the Florida Panther, but it brought other stakeholders into the conversation as well. Notably, ranchers are actually on the side of the panther in Florida. Both need large expanses of land, and the ranchers filmed didn't seem too concerned about the cattle depredation by panthers as a possibility. As a Westerner, this is very foreign to me. Western ranchers hate predators for the most part. But in Southern Florida, it sounds like ranchers are just as threatened by urban and suburban sprawl as panthers are. So they find themselves on the same side. Geographically, the documentary is focused on the Babcock Ranch, which is a large property north of the Calhoochee River, as this is considered the northern recovery area for the species. Carlton was working so hard to document a female jaguar or female panther occupying this area in order to demonstrate the functional expansion of the species. Since no female had migrated north of the Calhoochee River since 1975. And spoiler alert, he was successful. He documented a female panther that they named Babs, and she had 2 cubs on the Babcock Ranch, which is an incredibly exciting development for the species. In addressing the threat and in filming Betty Osceola from the Miccosukee tribe, the film definitely hits on the history and emotional value of the Florida Panther in the southern Florida landscape. Later on, when discussing the proposed toll roads that would be running through the northern expansion area of the Florida Panther range, it also got into the issues of rural versus urban and suburban land values, with rural values actually aligning again with the Florida Panther. This and likely the Endangered Species Act protections that weren't considered or likely weren't considered during the proposal of the toll roads led to the Florida Wildlife Corridor Act of 2021, which directs the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to encourage and promote investments in areas that protect and enhance the Florida Wildlife Corridor, which is shown here on this slide. So hopefully between now and I think 2070, a lot of these properties are able to be connected to allow for further northern expansion of the Florida Panther. I alluded to it earlier, as I mentioned, that I think this film was mostly an opportunity to make use of a considerable amount of content produced by Carlton Ward Jr. But you know, you gotta take it for what it is. It leaned on its strengths. It was visually a stunning film. But me being a nerd, I do have some criticisms that I wish that it was, but I need to accept that that's not what it was. That's not what it was meant to be. I do wish there was more hard science. I felt a little bit disappointed after Carlton observed this kitten with the rare neurological disorder that seems to be plaguing the species at the moment, that they didn't really delve into that. I felt like that was a missed opportunity. But maybe the science at the time that the film was being created just wasn't up to snuff. to really talk about it. Um, it also felt like, even though it did take into consideration a lot of different professionals' opinions and thoughts, it didn't connect with regular citizens to see what they think. It was very much associated with interested stakeholders. And then, like, I have a number of questions that they kept popping in my mind, because I think about how the species, outside of just educational value, how the species is going to be protected in terms of, again, the permitting constraints that the proposed toll roads would have faced. I felt like that proposal was dead in the water, so they made a big deal out of something that in my mind was never going to happen. Why the ranches were losing land, are the private ranchers not selling their land? How are they losing the land? So that part was a curiosity to me. And I think that it would have been really good if they had taken some time to describe how keeping the ecosystems intact is also good for human welfare, rather than just leaving us feeling like it's housing and human benefit versus the panther. I think the panther is going to lose every time there. And then perhaps because the film was created before the Wildlife Corridor Act was passed, but it really should have discussed how the northern recovery area was important and what it was going to be connecting to. So those are my main criticisms and what I wish that the film had touched on. So in terms of rating, here's some ratings from a few online outlets. IMDb had it a 7.5, but a lot of users rated it really highly. And Google users 94%, Rotten Tomatoes 95, Common Sense Media 4 out of 5. And I'm going to try and rate it from two different lenses. As an instrument for activism and education, this is definitely a 9 out of 10. I agree with Google users and Rotten Tomato users. It was fantastic to watch. The visual impression it leaves you with is just very much well worth the watch. But from a scientific standpoint, I wanted more. So acknowledging that I'm being greedy, I think a 7 out of 10 is fair. The filmmakers looked at the conservation issues from a number of different perspectives and shared a lot of good information, but it was pretty fluffy. I wish it pushed harder. This all being said, the film obviously wasn't made for scientists. It's really for general Floridians, environmental interest groups, students, and nature lovers to just sit back and enjoy some eye candy. So with that, go watch it. It's on Disney Plus. If you've got a subscription, it's free. It's well worth the watch. My wife really enjoyed it. She started to look up properties in Southern Florida to see if we could invest to help with the connectivity initiative. But so yeah, it's really compelling in that way. But yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think. Thanks.